Okay, Pradeep ji, welcome to Education Next podcast. And actually, I'm starting this with you in the sense that, we have done small recordings before and we could not continue for some reasons. But after I attended the IMA gathering, I realized that there's so much happening in India. There is so much potential, right, in the alternative learning space. And I've always been this chaser of understanding how alternative spaces work because I'm doing something very similar in my personal life. And I write a lot about alternative spaces. But, when I came to that gathering, my gathering, I realized we are doing a lot of stuff and meeting amazing people like you. I thought, why not catch them and, learn about these because you have been doing it for a very long time. So I would like to know from you about your work in, the youth space, the way you are helping youth developing skills, and a little bit about yourself as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Priyanka. That also puts me in a confusion. Where do I begin from? So, okay. So, I'm Pradeep Ghosh. I'm from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, and I have my own organization called Oasis. A bit of a background of this is primarily I worked in the corporate world in the IT information technology sector for about 15 years. And spanned about 12 countries as the Asia Pacific manager in my Asia Pacific regional manager in my last engagement with an organization. So, and that is where, I first saw, I would say, development from a very close quarter, because I was watching the different countries and, how they interact with with everyone. And I found situations not very different from what we have in India. Just a bit of plus and minuses, but they were, rich and poor everywhere. Not that, every country had only the riches or only the poor, but they were a combination everywhere. And everywhere there were development issues. There were all sorts of things that are happening in India were also happening in the rest of the world. So that led me thinking, that why is it that we all desire change, but not the change is not happening? And then I started, cribbing on it for quite some time. I did that, and then I said, "Oh my God, why am I cribbing if I can't do anything?" So either, I stop cribbing or I start doing something. And with that thought in mind, took a very, I would say, daring jump and left my corporate job and entered the social sector without any preparations or anything. But cutting the long story short, as I explored this whole sector for about 1.5 years to 2 years, I was trying to find the gap, where I can bring about a change. And the gap that I found was that um, I found that, in my corporate stint, I found that every industry had a research laboratory from where new products and new processes were developed, right? And that is how all the industries grow. Without a research lab, no industry would grow. But social sector, being such a big industry, did not have a research laboratory. All the research that was being done was primarily, collecting a lot of data, primary, secondary, analyzing the data, then publishing reports. Some of them, of course, impacting policy. Some of them going into publications, rest lying there. But the problem was that, this research was not the research that I was talking about in industry, because in the social sector, the society is continuously changing. Their needs are continuously growing. Their aspirations are continuously evolving. And so are the problems and the issues. They are also multiplying. In such a dynamic, changing environment, old approaches or old processes cannot work for very long. But then there was no platform to develop new approaches, new ideas, new methodologies, new processes. So I said, well, I found my place. There's a gap that I should address. And with that thought in mind, I started India's first social innovations laboratory, which was named Oasis. So it was the first such laboratory where social innovations could have happened. And when I started that, I figured out that why no one was doing it, because there were no funds for innovations. People always like to put in money to proven things, but no one liked to put in money for something that needs to be tested. So I said, okay, now that I've started it, I should, get on with it. And we started doing things. Over a period of 20 years, we kind of, addressed about 10 issues and tried to develop new approaches to them. So what we do is we identify an issue, we research deep, go deep dive into it, research it thoroughly, go to the root cause, and then we come up with a very out of the box solution. And we pilot the solution ourselves on the ground with the community, with the people who are affected by that issue. And then from the pilot, we take the learnings as well from that ground experimentation. And then we develop it as a model and put it on our website for replication. So anyone can just take it, and they don't even need to inform us. So we don't claim any royalty, no credits, nothing. Just take it as you like. So out of the 10 models that we have developed in 20 years, Government of India has replicated 2 of our models. Some state governments have replicated, NGOs have replicated, universities have replicated. And many, when we get to know, from others that, oh, this model was also replicated by them, and then it's a happy, situation for us. So we have been in this process for 20 years now. And since you asked specifically for the youth and skills, so, there was a challenge given to us that the social sector did not get any volunteers in tier 2 cities. Tier 1 cities had a lot of volunteerism, but tier 2 cities did not have any volunteerism. To the extent that even the MSW students had to be paid a stipend to come and do their internship. So that was the situation, and this I'm talking way back in 2006. When this challenge was given to us, and we had just initiated a program in 2005 on education for urban children, underprivileged children, which went on to, become a UNICEF Asia Pacific awarded, UNESCO's Asia Pacific awarded model called the Museum School. And in that museum school, we were also requiring a lot of volunteers, but then we were not getting volunteers. And this challenge was given to us by one of the very, a senior development professional in Bhopal in a very established organization. I said, okay, fine. Now that you have given me the challenge, I need to work on it. And then we started working on it. And, while every other volunteer organization, they try to look at the kind of incentives behind volunteering, what can be the incentive for volunteering, we try to look at it in a very different way. We ask the youth that, what is it that you're primarily looking for? Forget volunteering. What is it that you're primarily looking for after your education? They said, of course, jobs. They said, jobs, yeah? Honestly, they said, we're looking for jobs. Get us a good job, we are happy. I said, but is the job looking for you? You are looking for a job, but how do you know that the job is looking for you? They said, what do you mean by that? Why would the job look for us? Because there's so many applicants, so few jobs.
Correct.
I said, okay, fine. Let's go to the ones who are looking out for good employees. Let's go out to them. So I reached out to a lot of corporates.
Wow.
And thanks to my connections, I spoke to a lot of the HR heads in those corporates. And I asked them a very simple question. I said, when you go for recruitment of a placement in an institute, what is it that you look for in a candidate? They said, of course, technical skills, other behavioral skills and other things. I said, tell me, leave the other things. Tell me what primarily do you look at? So they said, very blatantly, they said, see, technical skills are more of bookish nowadays. They are no more practical, number one. So it doesn't help us a lot because anyway, we have to teach our employees the technical skills. Unfortunately, the institutes do not teach any other skills. But what we look for primarily is in an employee are 3 things. One is the ability to do teamwork, the ability to build a team, and leadership qualities. If these 3 things exist in any person, the rest we can manage with them. But these cannot be, taught. They cannot be kind of even found out through interviews. It's very difficult to find out through interviews whether this guy would be good in teamwork, team building, and leadership. So I said, but then how do you check for these qualities in any individual? They said it's a lot of guess, miss and hit both.
Oh.
So yeah, at times we get good people, at times we don't. And that's why we take a bigger bulk, and then we know that some of them will automatically shut up. So I said, that's a good strategy. But then what if you get people who have all these skills?
Correct.
They said, well, if anyone builds those skills, we'll be very happy. That is when we got the incentive. We said, this is the incentive that is required. So we came back and told the youth that, listen, the corporates do not want you to be technically extremely good, to be, kind of having a flying percentage and degrees and all that stuff. They're looking for these three qualities. Do you have them? And they said, no. I said, where do you get them then? Do you get them in coaching institutes? They said, no. I said, then? They said, you tell us. I said, come over. We'll give you these.
Wow.
And that is how we got them to come and volunteer with us to start off. And so what we did was very simple,
This was in 2016.
Sorry?
This was in
No, this was in 2007.
Okay.
2007.
All right.
Yeah. So 2007. And also, there was another factor that a lot of people who had earlier volunteered with other organizations, they were telling us that, sir, we have a few problems with NGOs. And the problems are that, one, that they engage us in things like office work, in things that we are good at. For example, we are good at web designing, we are good at accounting, we are good at other things. They engage us in that, but we go to an NGO to do primarily field work, right? Because that is what we want to do, but they do not allow us to go there. So we are not happy with that kind of an engagement. That was number one. The second was that they said that the moment we went into the office work with them, we found that there was a lot of mismanagement happening, both in terms of resources and finances. And that led us to a further disillusionment also. The NGO sector works like this. So we would not like to get associated with an NGO. I said, wonderful. Wonderful. If these two statements, let us start a new organization. And we formed a new NGO. And we gave it a name, Swans.
I came across that on your website, yeah.
Yeah. So we gave it a name, Swans, and we said, okay, let this be an independent entity. And no one interferes in this. You guys will be managing it. We'll be, helping you out how to manage it. So that's how. And honestly speaking, we never entered the executive body of that organization. The executive body was entirely done by, executed by the volunteers themselves.
Wow.
But we put certain systems. The systems that we put in that, see, to make anyone, experience how to do teamwork, you need to put that person in a team, right? Otherwise, how would they work?
Absolutely.
So we said that. We said that it's so simple. Let us make some standing principles. So standing principles are that no one will work individually. Everyone will have to work in a team.
Correct.
So any initiative that is taken or any NGO that you go to volunteer with, you need to go as a team, period. That's one. The second is that while this team is working, we will include a method of appraisal here. And it'll be a performance appraisal, just like it happens in the corporates. So there'll be a performance appraisal system. And this performance appraisal will be a 360-degree one. Generally, people in the corporate know these terminologies. There will be a 360-degree appraisal system, right? Where you will be appraised, you will do a self-appraisal. You will be appraised by the one who's heading your team. You will be appraised by the one who's hierarchically under you, or you are kind of managing them. You will be appraised by the organization that is engaging you. And you'll be appraised also by the beneficiaries for whom you're working. Okay. So it'll be a 360-degree appraisal. And this, on the basis of this appraisal, anyone who figures out the best in this appraisal will lead the team, irrespective of his or her age or experience in the team.
Okay.
So we said, let's do this this way. And then, we started working. It was extremely good. It was very difficult for the youth to initially understand how this is happening. But then finally, when it started working, and they figured out that, okay, performance is the only metric, that puts us as a team leader. So all of them started doing their best, right? Then while this was happening, it started going on pretty well. A lot of volunteers started pouring in. We never advertised. We took in volunteers only by the word of mouth, because we said that any volunteer who's referring someone else is actually adding value for that person. So no volunteer will come without reference. So only when you get to know that you get similar mindset people, then only you take them in. So we put in a filtering mechanism by the volunteers themselves. Every volunteer comes through a reference, no without references. That's how we did it. So the sanctity of the group started remaining very tight, and the credibility as well, because everyone was owning the group now, owning the organization. Then came the situation that they all said that, sir, we need to do some events as well. So that people get to know that such an organization is working and doing extremely good. We need to organize some events. I said, fantastic. So why don't we organize events? They said, but that needs a lot of expenses. I said, fine, but we have one sound principle in this organization that we cannot take money. So there is no taking money, there is no giving money. How do we do it then? They said, not possible, sir. I said, well, try it out. And then we introduced a system in which we didn't have to take money from anyone. I'll tell you about that later, how that happened. And to the extent that, we organized 3-day residential camps for 100 people.
Wow.
Without taking a single penny from anyone.
Wow. I'm curious now.
I'm curious now. So generally, how does it happen? But I'll tell you that later. But the good part was that it all went fine, and then it was repeated. 3 years, we continuously repeated that event. One event, which was an annual event, which went on for about 6-7 years. So all that started happening. And we grew up to 1,100 volunteers across the country.
Wow.
And this whole thing happened. It started in 2007. By 2017, we saw that Bhopal itself, which is a tier 2 city, which did not have any volunteer group in 2007, now had about 30 of them. So we could spark off that thing, which led to 30 other volunteer groups. And many of them are functional now. And then we said in 2017, now let's wind up. Because there are already 30 groups. So let's not do it anymore. Our job is done. Let's now, wind it up and keep the memories for ourselves. But 10 years of volunteer work, teaching youth teamwork, team building, and leadership just through social work. And in all these 10 years, we did not even have a bank account.
Oh. So many bombs you're bursting here.
So volunteers learned even, financial management, resource mobilization, everything, just by doing the work. There was another very interesting thing that we brought in here for leadership. Generally leadership is a difficult thing to teach, but we brought a beautiful thing here in leadership. We said that the events that are being organized, the next time the event is organized, we make sure that the ones who had led the initiative at that point of time, or were in the as some of the functional leaders, will not be the leaders this time.
Okay, so everybody gets a chance.
Not only everybody, but we said that the one who has joined in fresh should be made the leader.
Oh, okay.
The one without any experience should be made the leader. And then it is the responsibility of the experienced ones to see to it that the function is performed perfectly well. Whatever function you have taken, that particular group needs to ensure that the entire thing is done perfect. Now, when you need to do it perfectly, the experienced ones, what they do is they ultimately end up training the guy who's leading because he has zero experience. And the one who has zero experience, who's leading the team, he has no other option except to consult the members in his team.
Correct. He has to come down and.
Right? And these two things, a leader consulting the team members and the team members teaching the leader, does not happen in any of the corporate world. So this, brought up the leadership qualities to such a beautiful proportion that any youth had the confidence to become a leader. So they learned teamwork, they learned team building, they learned leadership, all in the work.
And these were how old? These students were how old at that
They
time?
were all college-going grads, yeah. They were all college grads, yeah. So college grads, and some of them had started working as well. Of course, now all of them are engaged in different corporates, and the good thing is that most of them have joined the CSR of their corporates.
That's
so because that went into their blood. Some of them, in fact, head the CSR of their organizations.
Wow.
So they went to that extent as well. So we are happy, that at least we have been able to see in that change in this youth.
I think, like you said, not only it's challenging to find volunteers, at the same time, when I was working in a school, sending the teens, 11, 12 students to find volunteering opportunities in Chennai, it used to be a tough task because some fear comes from the parents. They were very strict in what kind of work they want their kids to do. And the children they would ask me only one question: will we get a certificate? Or second thing was, will you write me a referral? Because they only came to me because they wanted a referral from me, or the certificate. So they were very paka on those things, and I used to go crazy finding spaces for them where it's, because when it is students, especially school students, you have to worry about their safety, because anything happens, it's a huge problem there. And then I would go hunting for this, and they won't even go there. I had to push them to be there on those Saturdays or Sundays or online meetings. So though I think everybody says that there are voluntary programs are not available in schools, it is a big challenge to motivate kids to go there.
Right.
It's a tough thing. And but now that you said, it is very interesting that you said that the skills that this company needed was teamwork, leadership, and sadly, where do we learn about teamwork? Where do we learn to work in a team, and where do we learn to have leadership skills? And leadership skill doesn't mean that you become a boss, right? Leadership skill is more than we can imagine, right? How you bring your team up is all about it's leadership, right? And that is never taught, and that's why people struggle. I think how to work in a team is a big challenge for especially people who are working in technical fields, software companies. And I'm sure that that's what you got from your friends, that is the thing they're looking for. They're not looking for degrees, they're not looking how smart. Anyways, they will train you. Now, these days, a mechanical person goes and becomes a software engineer. They are trained in 3 months. Crash course, injection, you become a software engineer. So it's not that you can't learn. Abundance of knowledge, abundance of resources there. So I think this is what the youth needs more now: internships, mentorships, volunteering. And but the other challenge that you said, that when children or when youth go to these organizations, they don't get a happy or they're not satisfied with how they are learning. They see problem in the institute as well. So what can we do about it? I mean, finding you and doing under you is a different thing. But then, this is a common problem. Before we get a taste of how the job will be, internships should be there. Volunteering.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I think then you should decide what you want to do in your life. I think even after school, it should be such a necessary thing to taste how work looks like. How will be soft, how will it be like working in a software office? What am I going to experience? That taste we never get, right? We're just dumped into one thing after the other. And I think with alternate ways of learning and living, you at least get an idea of what can I expect, isn't it? Because otherwise you just go, you are suffering, you have depression. You say you never knew that software engineering looks like this, that you will be sitting in an office, right, from 9 to 6. And
you'll be just filling Excel sheets, nothing more than that.
exactly. You will get the money, but then how about your life? And I think that is the reason many people are breaking free now. They're leaving their work, they're leaving corporates. You see the ashrams, you see engineers coming and teaching you yoga because they're like, oh, I didn't know this is what I'm going to get here. So I'm breaking off, right? Yeah. So I think, this kind of spaces, I think we need more in our country where children learn skills or the youth learn the skills. When for example, what are the skills that you think are very important for the youth of today?
See, whether it is today or yesterday, any day, life skills are the most important, right? And unfortunately, life skills are never taught by in any institute or by any group. This is very, very unfortunate. Not even in the education system do you get to learn life skills. And at the max, if there is a life skill subject ever in your curriculum, then it is the life skill comes only from the books. So you never get to learn it experientially. Whereas experiencing life skill is the utmost important. And with life skill, there are a lot of other skills also. So life skill is just not your own sustenance skills, but more importantly of how you interact with people, how you use public spaces, how you use private spaces, what can be your behavioral patterns with different ages, with different communities, with different religions, with different languages, what can be the behavioral patterns, even nationally or internationally. So there are a lot of things which actually come in life skills, and none of these are ever taught in our education institutes. Because education institutes have been working so far in a very different way. So expecting them expecting the education institutes to change, I think it's a wild dream to chase, right? The only thing that we can do is to every individual who feels the urge to learn finds other spaces where they can learn these things, and organizations or groups, for example, like us, should actually develop mechanisms where we can teach these life skills to anyone and everyone.
Correct.
I would give an example. Even in our group, for example, this whole IMA thing that you have attended very recently, not all of us have all the life skills, right? We might brag about it, all of us might brag about it, but not all of us have all the life skills. There might be some life skills that you have, I don't. Some of them that I have, you don't. But then we never admit to it that we do not have these life skills. And unfortunately, there is no platform as such in these groups as well that can teach life skills or that can help learners learn life skills in a complete manner or in a holistic manner. So whether it is freshers or even experienced people who claim to be experienced, but they also lack a lot of life skills. These things are, if you look at the other systems around the world, the education systems around the world, you'll find a lot of education systems building in the life skills as a compulsory thing into their whole curriculum. And those life skills are not taught through academics. They're only taught experientially, right? So looking at the gap here in our country, we started an initiative called a life school. That was one of our social.
Oh, that's very interesting. I went through the entire thing. So right. now you're not doing life school?
So honestly speaking, I was actually waiting for someone to spearhead that because I was spearheading too many things. So yeah, I didn't want to mess up my plate a lot. So I thought that someone would take it up. But I'm still waiting for the takers. In fact, my daughter, who studied her master's in education from Azim Premji University, she was very keen to take it up. And she actually started off with me. So we did the life school together. She and a couple of her friends. But then, usually peer pressure happens, and she also ended up in a job. So I'm still waiting for someone, who's had that job experience, who's done with it now enough, had enough kinds. I can't stand it anymore, to come up and take up this initiative, because it's already well proven. We have researched a lot on it. We have piloted it on the ground. It's a proven model. So
Correct.
anyone can take it up, and start on their own. And so it's a beautiful initiative. It works wonders. It works wonders, in fact, not only on children, but it works on their parents as well. And we ensure that in our life school sessions, which we used to have it, on weekends in an experiential manner, we allowed parents to stay over for the entire session and participate in it.
Wow.
So a lot of parents participated. And in fact, they learned more than the children.
Yeah, I'm sure parents are also hungry to learn things. They pick up things really fast because, like you said, these spaces are rare. But I'm so happy that they are there. The mere idea of finding that, gives me so much happiness that there are spaces there. So stop saying that, because when people talk to me, when parents talk to me, they say, Ki, or what else can we do? We don't have options, we don't have alternatives. But I think that is the whole idea of bringing these podcasts, and to anybody who is hearing or who wants to explore something more for kids or for youth or teenagers. I think, like you say, you have to start seeking, right? I am not happy. What am I going to do about it? Am I going to just stick to a system and wait for 10, 12 years? Keep complaining? Or am I going to do something about it? Even I didn't have options. I stopped. I just stopped going to the school. I stopped working in the school. Adi, my son, stopped going to the school because I don't want to do more damage now. I wanted to stop it before, even if I don't have a community around, it's fine. I can take charge before I commit more mistakes, right? Before, I don't want to be the one. I hated myself talking behind the school, and complaining about it. So, somewhere the change has to start, like you say. Unless you start, you're just going to be there. You're going to complain for next 5, 10, 20 years till you are so fed up that either you will break or you will just mold yourself to, start doing things the world expects you to do. And with that, I think I'm so happy that I got you finally to talk. I think.
But Priyanka, I have an offer for you as well.
Yeah, please go ahead.
And the offer is that why don't you start the Life School initiative?
Let's come to Bhopal and start.
No, you can start it in Ranchi itself.
Ranchi. So is it like an online, or we'll discuss about it later? We don't have, but I would love to know what is. I mean, I read about it, but it sounds interesting. Let's see what we can do with that.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much, Pradeep ji, for being here. I have seen you as a person who loves kids, and getting you serious is a serious business. So I think I'm first time seeing you serious, and I'm so happy that you came here and enlightened us with so much. I'm going to put everything that you shared in a blog and a post, and I'm going to share that with all my listeners as well. And so that people know that these things exist, and that's the whole idea of education. It's to tell people that alternative ways of learning and living exist, and we're just a step away, to get there and experience, I think, and change our lives for good. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And
it's a pleasure.
I'm going to catch up with you more on different topics. All right then. Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.